Okay, so let's get into some of the politics stuff. So all my people know my situation with the left, but you have been in a very similar situation with the right. I know a couple of people in a similar situation as you, but basically, your sense, I think, is that the Trump situation has sort of hijacked the party. Nobody's really talking about issues anymore. It's really just become personality driven. This is why Milo loves it, actually. And I can get on board some of that because it's so against the social justice warriors and all that, and I like that part of it. But you're a policy guy, and that's why you do these videos breaking down policy and calling out bullshit and all that. So is that really what you're struggling with here? That it's not, this election almost has nothing, at least on the Republican side, has nothing to do with policy?
Well, it's not a struggle for me at all. I mean, that's one thing. I have complete respect for people who say, you know what, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. I just want someone who's going to come in and piss people off, and I'm angry, so I'm voting for Trump. That's fine. I have no problem with it. I have I don't want to say a problem, but I have far less respect for people who have claimed to be Tea Party conservatives or Christian conservatives doing these sort of mental gymnastics to justify the actions of somebody who basically wants to come in and take the greatest power grab the executive office has had, if you look at his proposals. Not once has Donald Trump's answer been, I don't think the government can fix this. Every now and then, wouldn't it just be good to hear politicians say, nah, yeah, damn, yeah, that sucks. I don't really know if I can fix it for you. Right. I would just like to hear someone say that.
So that's why you would want a real libertarian candidate then. Would you vote for Gary Johnson if he was a legit third-party guy, if he could get into the debate at 15%, would you go for him?
Well, I've said this, if it's Trump versus Hillary, probably. Just because I don't believe, at this point, I think they're the two sides of the same coin. I don't believe any of them are pro-life. I know Gary Johnson's not pro-life, but I genuinely believe that he probably attempts to defund Planned Parenthood. I know he has no choice. I'm a big supporter of the two-party system because I come from Canada, which is a parliamentary system. The reason the two-party system exists is to avoid this quagmire that you see in the primary where someone can hijack a party and can't get over that 36% ceiling of the vote. Listen, I thought Donald Trump coming in, like you said, I like that he pisses off the right people. That's great. I get it. I like that he's coming in and he's speaking in a way that, like you said, the media they don't know what to do. All of these analysts and talking heads. I mean, that's how I got on Fox News at 21, and I would just go on and make fun of them. And they didn't know how to handle it because this is how you conduct a debate at a round table. So I understand all that. But at a certain point I was saying, I need to hear something, anything, at any point espousing some kind of constitutional conservatism. And I haven't seen that. I don't care if things are ugly. I don't care if people are politically divided. Listen, I'm fine with being politically divided over the right issues. If someone wants to ban students for using offensive words on campus or they want to enact speech laws, I'm fine with being politically divisive with that person. But I also do think, I think we agree on that, but there are certain issues. Maybe you can help me with this. Yeah. I've never heard a single leftist rationalization that makes sense. Good example, I get it. Pro-life, okay, you don't think it's murder, there's science on both sides, I understand it. Healthcare, you think you're entitled to everything for free, courtesy of my tax dollars as a human right because Bernie Sanders says so. I can understand how you justify that. But how can anyone on the left be against, for example, charter schools? Or a voucher program attached to the student as opposed to no choice sending them to a school? How can a leftist be against drug testing or working for welfare, as we saw in Mississippi? Okay, you want to get your welfare, you show up, you work, we place you in a job, we put you in a job placement program. I've never heard a rational argument against some key issues, and it always reverts back to more government power. And I think that both of us, who have a problem with both George Bush and Barack Obama and this executive power grab, should feel incredibly uncomfortable with the rhetoric from people like Hillary Clinton or Bernie or Trump. And I know you're not a Cruz guy, but of those people, he's the one saying he'll do the least, or Gary Johnson.
I guess that's what Cruz is saying. He just reeks of me of used car salesman of the worst kind. I get what you're saying, and we can get into a couple of those issues, so we'll talk about some of our differences on those issues. But Cruz to me is just, and I mean this more at not a policy place or
gut level.
I mean it just at a gut level. I watch him in those debates. There is something so slimy about him. And this thing that, what does he have? Finally, he got one guy in the Senate to back him. I think Jeff Sessions or maybe one or two others now have been sort of forced into it. Or I think Lindsey Graham systematically endorsed everyone else first, and then the day that he would endorse people, they would drop out. I'm pretty sure now he's
See,
going
I love that. I love that. And that's the shit that Trump people claim they like, right? Oh, he's gonna go in, he's gonna piss everybody off. No, he doesn't. They're all willing to work with him. All the Democrats widely acknowledge that he's a much more of a deal maker, that he's unprincipled. And Ted Cruz, they hate him because he went in and he said, Mitch McConnell, you're a liar. Hey, John Boehner, you're kind of a piece of crap. I like that. I don't want a guy who's going in to make friends at this point. I understand it, and it's a valid criticism, but it's the same thing they used to praise Trump when it's untrue and then criticize Cruz. Yeah, he's unliked. He's polarizing because he is the outsider, and I understand that. I actually like that, but I also understand, you need someone who can work with both sides. And
what do you think about him on just that gut level? Because a lot of people, what I'm saying about that, just that feeling about him, you get a feeling about all of these people, and I can gladly tell you my feelings about the rest of them, but like you just sometimes get a feeling about them, and I think most people are with me on this. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the media has done a really unfair. I think a good example, right, is kind of studying home state. Ted Cruz versus Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz won his home state overwhelmingly. Marco Rubio lost it by a big margin. That's because people voted for Ted Cruz. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. People were happy with him, whereas Marco Rubio sort of betrayed his voting constituency. And I like Marco Rubio, but he kind of screwed the pooch in the Gang of Eight. So I think it's important to know, okay, we feel that way, but has he been consistent? And how do people who voted for him, who said, okay, you have the job, feel about him? What do they think about him? And the numbers are incredibly consistent. Yeah, I agree with you. We had him on the show. And actually on our show is where he was the best. He was a little bit loose in the shoulders. Yeah, it's that way where, well, let me tell you a story. And they can say, okay, I get it. And then Donald Trump just says, he's a prick, he's a lying Ted, piece of shit. And people like that. Right. But,
well, Cruz always tells a joke, and then when he releases the punchline at the end, you're like, wait, did you get to the punchline? Like, there's never a laugh.
But you're a comedian, that's not fair. I mean, if Hillary Clinton tells a joke, it usually involves, devouring someone's head on the stage. So they both have their weaknesses when it comes to delivering a punchline. But I certainly wouldn't say it's unfounded. If you could just take a better delivery, I understand that gut level. I mean, I've had him on the program, I've dealt with his people, and they were always very, very honest and very professional. And we've dealt with a lot of candidates on the show. So I can say that on a personal level, and then on a record, on a policy record, the guy's been pretty consistent. He wasn't my first choice, but here we are.
So I suspect if it ended up being Cruz versus Bernie, in a way, that's sort of your dream situation, right? Because then there is a clear battle of ideas. Like if you get Hillary and Trump, we know that really they're both centrists. And Trump, the reason we don't know what he thinks about anything is because he's taken every position because he just wants to win. I get it, and Hillary's done a lot of the same thing. But you'd really like the Bernie, even though you would hate Bernie as president, but you like the idea of the Bernie Cruz thing, because then we can go, what is the role of government, and let's have it out.
I think it would be a beautiful election in sort of this puritanical sense of, okay, you have pure socialism and you do have constitutional conservatism. And listen, I'm not going to lie, it's a little scary that socialism might win in the United States. And others say, well, it's democratic socialism. Like, well, democratic slavery, democratic dictatorship. You can bring someone in through democracy and then it destroys everything. It doesn't make it any nicer. Democratic, I don't know, Arby's, right? It's still Arby's. No one wants to go to Arby's, but if people democratically elect that everyone eats Arby's, it doesn't mean it's a good thing. So that's this sort of sleight of hand that he's pulled by just adding democratic in front of it. But yeah, I would like to see that. For all of Bernie's faults, he's been relatively respectful of Hillary Clinton. He could go after her in a way that Donald Trump could only hope to after these Republican candidates, so he has to make stuff up. Bernie doesn't do it. He sticks to policy. He sticks to disagreement. And I do think that with him and Cruz, you'd have a contrast. So I know it's just sort of the political hobbyist in me. But yeah, I'd much rather see that than Trump and Hillary Clinton. By the way, if it's Trump versus Hillary, I think he's gonna turn heel, as we say in wrestling. And I don't think he's going to be as hard on Hillary as he's been on Republicans. I think they have too much dirt in each other, sort of mutually assured destruction. I could be wrong.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think also that he would know that she's the only one that would be able to counter some of his stuff. You know, the little Marco stuff, or nobody likes Ted Cruz, or Jeb, you can't get it up, or whatever else he was saying about these guys. I think Hillary, for all...
I think that's a little bit of opining on your
Was that a bit? Did I stretch that one a little? I think it was something...
I don't think you said you can't get it up.
Didn't, you never boned your wife or something, I don't know, something like... Whatever it is, but I think that he knows Hillary... For all the flaws she has, which are obviously many, she is so seasoned and so good. And if she had to sit there across from Trump, I think it would be the first time that he would be back on his heels a little bit. And
we've seen him back on his heels, and it was Carly Fiorina.
Well, so right, so you get the woman element there, where then
it wasn't even a woman element; it was just someone with balls. Carly Fiorina was the only other one. Listen, I know people don't. I liked Carly Fiorina. Why? I thought she was conservative enough, and I thought she could beat Hillary Clinton. And she is someone who you ask a question, she will answer that question.
What about the running a company into a ground thing? Did that bother you?
Does it bother me? It depends. Let's see what happens in 2 years with Aura. You never know, Dan. I'll blame it on you. Now, listen, you can.
Did Carly Fiorina just take over Aura? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know. You can do that with CEO pay. Let's say a company's losing $800 million a year, and they bring in a new CEO, and they're losing $400 million a year. They go, it's losing $400 million a year. Yeah, but it's losing $400 million less. And if you look at HP compared to other companies that were developing, I mean, also during that time, the iPhone was created, right? Things rapidly evolved. Not a lot of tech companies. It doesn't mean she's a great CEO. But Donald Trump isn't a great businessman either. But yeah, I understand the flaws. We asked her about that on the show, point blank, and she answered. I said, listen, your tenure at HP is not impressive. How do you answer your critics? And she went boom, 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 down the list. And she answered it in a way that I thought was adequate. Anyway, my point to say is we did see Donald Trump back up when he made fun of her face, and then on stage said, by the way, she's got a great face. That's the closest you get to an apology from Donald Trump.
So you've had a bunch of these guys on. You've had Huckabee on. You've had Cruz. You've
Not just guys, you sexist prick.
Guys and gals. You've had Huckabee. You've had Cruz. You've had
gals. You get a Mad Men haircut, and now you're talking like you're from the early '60s.
A chick? How about a chick? Can I say that without? Now that's going to upset
Bitches
somebody.
and hoes, B's and H's. That works.
Exactly. Have you had anyone else? Of
we've
this
had
crew?
Fiorina, Cruz, Huckabee. Gosh, I want to say we had Santorum on at some point. I don't know exactly. We've extended invitations to all of them.
Yeah.
And Trump obviously won't come on. They don't really like the impressions. And I don't know. I'd have to get back. But those were the ones that stood out because at that point they were sort of transitioning from second stage to first stage, or they were kind of surging. So those are the ones that stick in mind. And I don't think many of them will come back. I mean, you can only have a presidential candidate come up, and then someone goes, "Did you do this show where in the very next segment Crowder played Spot the Tranny?"
Right.
And that's why I don't want to endorse anyone, because it will do more harm than good.
Right. So I've watched your interviews with those three, and what I thought you did do well is it's a really slippery game interviewing these people, and this is where the mainstream media has failed miserably. They ask softball questions constantly because they want to get a second interview, and they want a third interview and a fourth interview. And Chuck Todd knows if he stands up in the White House press room, not that Obama does a lot of press conferences anymore or ever, but if he asks a tough question, then Obama's just going to turn to somebody else, or the list in front of him, because I think he's picking it off a predetermined list. He's just going to go elsewhere, right? But I have noticed that you've tried your best to go in and out, and I know when I'm interviewing people that are not as influential as presidential candidates, sometimes you have to. My policy is I'll ask a sort of more broad question because I want to hear people's thoughts and then let them hang themselves if that's where they're going to go. But how aware are you of that when you're talking to them? Like, oh, I want to get this guy back, or I'm going to do the segment after, or any of that stuff.
Well, it's funny that you said give them kind of enough rope to hang themselves. We had to change our policy after one of our guests was caught masturbating in the closet and hung himself. So we said that we maybe played this poorly, overplayed our hand.
Wait, is that real? You had what's it?
No one carodied themselves in the studio aside from not gay.
Carodied, yeah, that's the name I was going for. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was so awkward. Remember when I was watching that movie Life as a House, and it was Hayden Christensen, and there was that scene where he's choking himself in the closet, and my girlfriend at the time and her mom were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so sad. He's trying to kill himself." And I was going, No, I think you're missing the concept of the scene. Like, what are you talking about? And I had to explain to them, like, people do that?
You, a good Christian conservative, had to explain that to your poor wife? That is very sad.
No, it wasn't my wife. It was a girlfriend at the time. Oh. And I also had to explain to them that World War II happened because they were actually German. And I was watching Saving Private Ryan once. And they're like, turn it off! So it was that kind of a serious German family. The question was, my thing is, and I think you're good about this too, ask them, give them the ability to answer, and if they don't, follow up, hold them to it. And my job is not to have them back. That's not my job. My job is to get the questions answered that I think the audience wants to hear. And I try and do the best job of it that I can. This is not something I signed up for when I was, planning a career. I'm grateful to have the opportunity. And I will say, Carly and Ted were very good in answering the questions when they felt that their guard was a little bit down. And that impressed me. And that's what we don't have. We don't have a lot of local politicians or any of this stuff. It's a podcast that happens to be syndicated on radio. And the problem with, traditional media is these people, they send out these press releases. You get like 20 a day begging for some state rep to be on. And I just, listen, we're not going to do it. Our job is to entertain the audience, to inform the audience. If it's not entertaining, informative, or insightful, it gets scrapped from the program. So that's how we try and run it.